boils and ghouls. Turn out the lights and keep the popcorn coming, because it's time for another episode of Fright Fights Podcast. Fright Fights Podcast. Get ready for your gore gang. Tyler Cavan, Chris Lax, and Mike McKinney tackling horror news, reviews, and fight for their survival. Coming to you from the Fright Fights Fear Lodge. Get ready to sink your fangs into a battle that will make your blood run cold. This is Fright Fights. Fright Fights.
I'm Tyler, and welcome to Fright Fights. This week's episode is all about the sweet smell of blood, as the Fright Fights crew pulls out the slab for some 90s slashers. But before that, my fellow Gore Gang members, Chris Lax and Mike McKinney. How's it going, guys?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's been an entire week, and I'm ready to talk about horror films, and I cannot wait to get started on the 90s slasher battle. We got prepared for everybody today.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, such a great time frame, the 90s.
And Mike's definitely going to lose.
Yes. Thank you for putting that out there. I'll slash your tires later. So, but no, man. And also a big shout out to everyone that's giving us a like on social media. That's huge, and all the followers. We appreciate it.
Yeah, everybody from Belgium. That one person from Belgium that listens.
Everyone from Belgium. I really like it. And then a big shout out to a guy that I worked with. I hate him. Name's Thomas, but other than that, guys, JK, love the guy. But
hey, there was a guy from Brussels too, so we actually have two. We have two of them now, so we're moving up.
So I put out there too. I wanted everybody to, I wanted the listeners or viewers or whatever to get involved with the show as well. And I wanted them to send in questions that we would answer out on the show regarding us. Just they ask us anything they want, we'll answer it on the show. Mm-hmm. And a coworker of mine kind of took it a little off. He thought he was just going to ask us like trivia questions that we would give the answer to on the show, which was really funny.
About Benji?
Yeah, Benji. So he sent us a message, and he asked us what the first movie was that Annabelle made the appearance in, Annabelle the doll. And so I just want to go ahead and give that answer really quickly. Is we all know that the first movie wasn't Annabelle; it was actually The Conjuring, the James Wan film. Annabelle, the Annabelle doll shows up in that film along with The Conjuring 2, plus the Annabelle movies. And I believe The Curse of La Llorona was also, she made an appearance in that as well.
I did not know that.
There's a few things that the Annabelle doll has been in. So that whole Conjuring universe is pretty much the start of that doll. So Benji, there's your answer. The Conjuring was the first film. But yeah, anybody that is listening, feel free to go to our Facebook page and send us a message. You can ask us any question that you want that's related to horror films or to us in general, and we will answer them on the show. Or we'll give your name a shout out and everything. So so there's that.
Well, hey guys, also while we're on the topic, just a quick hot take. What is your favorite film that Annabelle appears in? Just off the top of your head.
You talking to the viewers or to us?
To you guys. What
to
do you
think?
Us? Man,
The Conjuring.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably that, because that's the most memorable of them to me, to be honest. Because Conjuring was, I loved it. Yeah. So just short and sweet would be The Conjuring. Just the start of it all.
So mine is a little bit of a hot take probably, but I really, really like this film. It's called Annabelle Comes Home. It was the third one of the Annabelle series. Have you guys seen that one?
Sounds like a Christmas movie, like Annabelle Comes Home.
It almost sounds like a Hallmark movie. Yeah, like okay.
No, dude,
don't get me started on Hallmark movies.
Oh my God!
I'm telling you guys, it is so good.
Okay, so Tyler, So you missed out. Me and Mike took a trip down. The Fright Fights crew, minus you, took a trip down to Camp Landing Theater for a special Fright Fest screening of the new film, The Invitation. So I know that you were. I know you were wanting to check it out with us, but you couldn't make it. But the movie itself was basically, it's like a Hallmark movie. Somebody did a review for it online and said this is like watching a Hallmark version of a horror film. And I think me and Mike looked at each other during the middle of the movie and was like, "Man, this review is spot on." Like,
yeah.
So I don't know if people don't know what the movie's about. Mike, if you want to give kind of a brief description of what it is, and then we'll go into our actual take of what we thought of the film, because this is going to be separate from our actual battle. We're having a 90s slasher battle later on in the show, but we have a few movies that we did watch we want to do a quick review on while we get prepared for that. So, Mike, go ahead and take it away.
Really, it's just about a woman that is going through a hard time. She recently lost her mother. I think it was about a year before the movie that takes place in the movie. And Chris, if I miss anything, you please jump in and correct me. But woman lost her mom. I think it was cancer, and was wanting to find extended family. She didn't have any family left. And basically, she's just researching. She's struggling financially. I think she was like a server, and it was really weird how this took place. Though the movie was very fast paced, so if you go to watch it, you got to keep up with it. But back to back to the woman looking to find family, and a friend of them They find like this gift bag. They take it home, and in the gift bag there is a whatchamacallit,
a DNA test.
Yes, basically, yes. I'm sorry, a DNA
23andMe
to see if right. But it's a DNA test to locate family, like around the world, and then so happen she does have some family members alive, like some, what was it, cousins or nephew or cousins or something like that in England.
She gets a message from somebody that is in England who happens to be who claims to be her cousin. So her friend is like, "Hey, this is your only chance to meet family that you've never met before. Why don't you go ahead and meet up with them and see how everything goes?" And what happens from that, Mike?
Well, it really gets bad afterwards, in my opinion. So she meets up with this individual for lunch, the so-called cousin, and they sit down for lunch. Next thing you know, the woman doesn't even give it really much thought. She jumps on board, goes to the airport, and she's going to England. And next thing you know, like, she's going to this huge mansion where they're getting ready for a wedding. And she supposedly was it a cousin that was getting married, or some relative that was getting married is why she was going? Was that it, Chris?
There was supposedly two relatives that were getting married, and the oldest of the relatives wanted everybody to be there and be involved in the wedding for like the one time only event. So she just thought she was there, and she felt like royalty because it was in this big fancy mansion, and the lord of the mansion he wasn't any of the family members, but he was just the owner of the place they were getting married at. And everybody is kind of conjugating in this whole entire mansion as far as the family goes. But something's off. Something doesn't seem right. And just things take a turn for the worse because people start disappearing. Well, not really disappearing, but getting attacked by kind of like an unknown force. There's like 2 or 3 different scenes with that. And then she keeps seeing these things in her bedroom. The lord of the house starts having a romance with her, which was really quick. It was like a 1-day romance, which was odd. But from that point on, you find out that this is spoilers for everybody as well. Sorry, but from that point on, you find out that there are vampires in the family, and the vampires are wanting to. What it is the vampire clan is stronger if there are in series of threes. So the Lord, who is the vampire, takes like three different wives from three different families to complete a unique version of a blood symbol of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what they were going for with that, but apparently it makes them stronger by having the three types of bloodlines together.
Right.
Very, very odd. When the movie started, it felt like we were already in the middle of the film. It jumps right into it, and you don't know where the people are. You don't know what they're doing or why they're there. And as Mike mentioned earlier when he was talking about the DNA test, they're literally at like a big fancy restaurant, and they're just servers of some sort. And the lady is like, "Hey, I grabbed a swag bag," and she's like, "Oh, cool! I can't wait to get home and see what's inside." She said, "Oh, I've already looked at it. There's a DNA test inside." It's like, whoa. What?
And like what kills me about this is like here she is, like it's such a fast-paced movie that this woman is like I think there's a bill laying on her table like she's past due on rent, but by God, she can afford to do the DNA test and have it sent off and go out and like to these fancy restaurants. It just did not make sense. It was, how should I put this? It failed at being horror. It failed at being a romance. If anything, you could go in and like, it's more of a mystery. I would say it's like a mystery movie because the whole time you're wondering like, who are these people? Like how, like I know if I just met somebody in my family, I wouldn't like just hop aboard and go over to another country with them, barely knowing them. But kind of like Chris said, I can't even say it had potential. It really didn't because, bam, you were thrown in the middle of this woman's life. You really didn't get to see the loss of her mom. It just, from opening scene to the ending scene, it's a lot to process. And it, like I said in the beginning, it majorly misses horror, majorly. If it does have anything, I wouldn't even call it romance. It's more of an obsession that the main individual, the main vampire, sees the potential in this woman that he wants her to be his bride, his next partner to overtake, I guess, the throne or however you can say it. But it's not even a mystery. It's more like a rape, like in a way. It's like, you're going to do this. You're going to be my wife. And it's just really done badly.
Yeah, it was rating. It was a lot going on at the exact same time. Nothing was happening. Like there was so much stuff to focus on, but nothing happened and nothing led to anything. There's a chase sequence where this lady is running away from the castle or the mansion or whatever, and the camera is focused on her as she's running, but then nobody's even like around her to see her. So she just goes into a building and then somebody comes in and looks around and leaves, and then she leaves. And it's like nothing happens from the chase. And it's just a lot of buildup for nothing happening for anything, really. It was extremely boring.
It just seemed like all the transitions in the movie were like a bit like clunky. You know, it left you wondering like, how did it get to this point? And she literally just, I mean, it was very, it wasn't written well. Like I said, now some of the scenes, the CGI, like, you know, the quality, it was well shot. Don't get me wrong, because it was more on a top performance level on, you know, money wise. But God, the writing was bad. Was very, very bad.
Writing and story was the worst part. Yeah, like as Mike was saying, the cinematography and everything was well done. It wasn't a badly made movie, but it was just something that was just extremely slow paced, extremely boring for not really any outcome for you. You didn't care about any of the outcome. It was just all around just a really boring film from start to finish. It was
really fast paced with nothing in between to kind of get you interested. It was just a lot of just boring stuff. But apparently, they are bringing out for the home market for like streaming services and DVD and Blu-rays. They're bringing an R-rated cut because what we saw in theaters was a PG-13 cut, which was odd because I don't know if you noticed, but there's a scene in the film where one of the ladies jumps into a swimming pool, and it tries its best to cut away from all the different angles of like what would be nudity and stuff. And I think that you could easily tell that it was supposed to be an R-rated cut. And
when does this come out? I'm asking for a friend. I'm just joking.
But all together with the movie being as slow as it wasn't anything memorable at all. I would give it a 3 out of 10.
Yeah. The filming was done well. I will give credit when credit's due. The filming was done well. The atmosphere, like the house, the mansion, those images or the shooting of those, it was done well. I will be honest. I did like one character in the movie. It was the butler. I thought the butler played a very well, creepy guy. I give it a 3.5. It's just because it failed on horror. It failed on like a romantic level. And honestly, it even failed on a mystery. If it hit one of those topics and just stuck with it, like if it hit one of those and just stayed with being a horror movie or a romantic, like a Twilight in a way, or a mystery, but I don't think even the director knew what he was wanting to do. So I give it a 3.5.
Oof.
Yeah, the best thing about our screening of The Invitation was before the movie, me and Mike got to do a 3D killer clown like shooting ride game where we got to hold, like you said, in one of those chairs, and the chairs vibrate and move, and you shoot at the 3D screen. You try to kill all the clowns. We got to do that before the movie started, and that was a lot of fun. I think that was probably the best part about the viewing that we had.
It's amazing.
I killed Mike, by the way. Mike had no. Mike had like hardly. Well, I beat him by just a few points. I'll say that.
Not that anybody was keeping tabs, but exactly 89 points. So there will be a rematch. there will be a rematch.
Well, I'm glad that you guys watched the film. So you took one for the team, so I didn't have to. That's all I needed to know.
Just helping you out, Ty. Helping you out.
Thank you. Helping out a friend.
Yeah.
Honestly, it sounds like a Lifetime movie, and it's kind of funny because I heard the same thing before you guys had seen it, and I had watched the trailer, and I'm telling you that just from that trailer, you could tell how like cheesy it almost was, and the way the story was told. So, I'm glad to see that it lived up to its hype of being a Lifetime movie for theaters. So that's nice. But while you guys were watching that, the next night I had a chance to finally sit down to rewatch a movie that I had been wanting to rewatch for a very long time. It's kind of interesting because this film has a cult following now. It wasn't necessarily underseen at the time, but it was very underappreciated. I think that a lot of people went and saw it, kind of forgot about it, and then slowly it built up all this hype. And it is called Orphan, from 2009. Wow. Yeah, you guys watch it? It's I absolutely cannot say enough good about the film, but honestly, revisiting it, I did notice a few things, knowing the big twist at the end, and I will be talking about the twist at the end. So if anybody has not seen Orphan from the past 15 years that it's been out almost, definitely skip ahead. But I have to say, Orphan itself, being a film produced by a company called Dark Sky Entertainment, it's founded by like Robert Zemeckis and a couple other guys. These guys were doing so many crazy things at the beginning of the early, mid, and late aughts with horror. I can't even begin to describe like all like the crazy budgets they had and how popular their films have become. They did films from like Ghost Ship. They were doing help me out, guys. They had like Ghost Ship. They had Orphan, of course. They had 13 Ghost. Did they do what else did they do? They did House of Wax.
I was gonna say, wasn't House of Wax one of them?
Oh yeah, and they were all like super fun, super high
Yeah.
budget horror films, especially because horror had been getting a pretty small budget from the 80s and 90s. So Orphan definitely was not an exception with that. Essentially, we have a story of a family that is grieving at the very beginning. The mom is haunted by images of like this daughter that they wanted to have, and she had a miscarriage and was basically being plagued by the fact that she wanted this daughter that she couldn't have. And they are just filthy rich. Like these people are just like they live in like a 3-story like mansion, a completely modern setting, and they drive the best cars, they do like the best things. So the thing is that they wanted to adopt. They decided that they were stable enough that they were ready to take that next step. And they go to this orphanage and they see a bunch of kids out playing and having a good time, and they notice that there's this one little girl upstairs painting, and this little girl is very reclusive, very smart acting, like she acts like she does have her wits about her. She seems like a person that's definitely not belonging in an orphanage. Very much so like where is her family, because she had like a lot of culture behind her, you could really tell. And the family kind of takes interest in her and asks them, basically asks the girl to come home to live with them, and signs the paperwork, and the rest is history. She moves into the house. The kids that they already have kind of doesn't really accept her. They want to accept her, but her daughter's mute as well. So they kind of like become a little bit of a acquaintance more so than the brother does. And then they start noticing that some of the things that the orphan, her name's Esther, does is she starts acting very strange. She starts saying things that's a little off. She starts saying things a little bit like adult themes to them. Um, and eventually what happens is they start seeing tragedy spring up. And little by little, the film progresses without giving too much away if you're interested in seeing it. We find out, I mean, just spoiling it all at once here, but we find out at the end that Esther is actually, in fact, not a little girl from the orphanage, but she is a 30-some-year-old woman from Russia. And she had previously killed her past like foster family in a house fire. No one made it out but her, and she's basically seeking revenge. Not revenge, but she's kind of like seeking, like she's like sociopathic, psychopathic. So it's not really necessarily a revenge story, it's more so kind of like a power story, I guess you would say. There's a lot of driving forces behind her like insanity, but for the most part, nothing really to target this family. And some of the things that Esther does throughout is absolutely batshit bonkers crazy. I mean, she almost like she basically, her stillborn daughter, the mom played by Vera Farmiga, they planted her ashes in this plant, and she like takes this crazy interest in this plant, and she's like, as long as this plant grows, my daughter will still be with me. And for spite, one day Esther goes out there and like cuts the fucking plant off, like literally he's like, I picked these flowers for you, mommy. I'm like, wow, while it's such like a nice gesture, like from the front facing, pretty much it's absolutely just devilish
Yeah.
to be able to do that. It's nuts. So it's just, it was just insane really to watch a story like that. And essentially the first like 3/4 of the film, they are saying it's Vera Farmiga. I forgot her name, but the mom in the story, they're like, oh yeah, it's actually her alcoholism and her grief from the past. And Esther's just a sweet little, innocent girl that's just wanting a family to love. So it's insane. The twist, I mean, if you guys have seen it, you guys already know the twist at the end. The very first time you watch it is absolutely crazy. I will say it does get a little bit cheesy certain times. Like as I watched it the first time, I never picked up on any of that. But this time it was a little bit more in your face with like the writing being a little off. There was some like kind of off kilter jokes as well that I really didn't get. But for the most part, I mean, it was pretty solid. I think that it's definitely up there with one of the top 5 dark sky entertainment films that had a pretty decent budget, that was pretty successful when it came out. So my rating for it would be 7 out of 10. I would definitely recommend checking it out. And the reason I rewatched it was because First Kill, that's the prequel. I guess it may follow. I don't know much about the prequel, but I'm speculating that it's probably going to be following the family that she was with before. And the same girl who
Yeah.
played Esther is coming back. Well, she came back for the sequel. So that's out in theaters now. I have not watched it, but I will definitely see it and report back to you guys on what I thought about it.
Nice.
Orphan was always a great movie. It was very
Yeah.
underrated. Not a lot of people talk about it, but it's always one of those movies. Whenever somebody does mention it, everybody that's listening or talking about it is always like, "Yeah, that is a really good movie."
I like the husband in the movie. What was it, Peter Sarsgaard or something like that? I don't know. I'm butchering the last name. I think
Peter
it's
Skarsgård.
that's it. Like
What's that
him as
guy's
an
name?
actor.
Peter Shar.
Yeah, this he's
Mike Miskitty.
yeah. I really like him as an actor, but yeah, Orphan overall, when you first see it, it blows your mind because at first you think it's just a little girl that's really messed up, but come to find out, she's a 30-year-old little woman, so like it's kind of freaks you out. It's a well shot movie. It's very dark, very messed up. But I will agree. You said you gave it a 7. I'd
7.
probably give it I'd give it like a 6.8, close to a 7. It's a good one. Definitely a good one.
Yeah,
the
twist is something that it came out of nowhere. Nobody really expected that, and I think they did a really good job when that movie came out of keeping it under wraps, not spoiling anything. I think if it came out today, but months before, everybody would already know what the ending was. So they did a really good job with that, and it was very surprising. Very well made movie. Very creepy little girl in it. I give it a 7 out of 10 as well. So
nice.
Yeah, really good.
I love my favorite scene is whenever she's at the very end of it. I don't know if you guys remember, but she goes in like full-fledged, like sexy, kind of like almost like a costume she's wearing. And she's like, "Daddy, will you hold me?" And I'm like, hello? You're a 9-year-old little girl. And then that's whenever it's revealed, you're like, wait, something's wrong with this. So I love that. And guys, I miss Dark Sky Entertainment. I really miss it. I forget how well their films were until I go back and think about their filmography. I'm like, we really, really were spoiled with like some really fun, high budget style, just like popcorn, hanging out kind of horror films at the time. And they really knocked out of the park, I would say 90% of the time. So a shout out to Dark Sky Films, and sadly, I don't think that they're involved in the new one. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm looking forward to that as well because I think it's very interesting because it's alluded to in Orphan about the prequel aspect it could have, and we never really got to see what happened before, like how she got where she is. So I mean, it could flop, it could be good. I've heard mixed things. We'll have to check it out and see.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mike, did you end up watching that movie you were talking to me about called 100 Bloody Acres?
Started it, but did not finish yet.
Well, we'll leave that for next week then.
Yeah, I was going to say, to the point right now, it'd be very unfair to rate it or kind of give what I think of it as right now. So that's definitely a discussion for next week on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get started into our battle of 90s slashers, I do have one more movie to talk about. So on the last episode, I reviewed a movie called The Resonator Miskatonic U, and I talked about its potential involvement with the character of Herbert West. So I decided to go ahead and check out the sequel called Beyond the Resonator, and it does introduce the character of Herbert West, and it's basically 2 stories in one. You get a little bit of the sequel of the Resonator, and then you also get kind of like a subplot, which is a remake of Re-animator, pretty much, where Herbert West's character moves into a fraternity house, and he looks at the guy and he's like, "I know you have a basement. I want to work in your basement. Whatever you do, don't come into the basement, no matter what." And so he's down there working, and he's going through all these different serums, and he has different colors for different strengths of serum, like a really light version with like purple, one that's green, one that's blue, one that's red, and he's testing them out on different subjects, whether it be animals or humans, and things don't go well, as you know the story of Reanimator. Now, the guy that plays the Reanimator, or Herbert West character, at first when he's introduced, I was like, man, he's not Jeffrey Combs. I'm not gonna like him because he's not Jeffrey Combs. And it's the only thing I can think of is him playing that role. But he ends up winning you over. He does a really well job at kind of keeping the Jeffrey Combs tone, like that no care in the world for anything surrounding him except for what he's doing in his work. He definitely played that really well. Overall, I really liked his character as Herbert West. I thought Jeffrey Combs obviously does a much better job, but this guy did a really good job as well. Now, in this is also a subplot with the sequel of the Resonator, where the characters from the first film are still trying to figure out how to pretty much get the Resonator working again so that they can stop all those creatures from coming into their realm. And that is, I learned that this is kind of like a miniseries. It was filmed as like a 3-part episode miniseries. So we're left at the end of this movie with no conclusion. It just kind of stops in the middle and it says like to be continued for the next film. So right now all we got is the introduction of Herbert West's character as he's performing all these different kind of medical experiments down in the basement with animals and humans, and then this guy trying to figure out how to stop the Resonator from making these monsters appear. And then that's pretty much all it is. There's no conclusion to it. But overall, it was a really fun movie. I liked it better than I liked the original The Resonator, mainly because of the Herbert West story. And I think that if he continues on to be in the third one, it'll be really well, as a really good movie as well. But I give this one a 6.5 out of 10. That was
Nice.
beyond The Resonator.
I wonder if they have to get any kind of like rights from the studio that owns Reanimator or Stuart Gordon or anyone really regarding Reanimator.
Well, there's a couple things. Is that company is with the same? It's Full Moon, so they have, they were the ones that originally worked out and did Reanimator and stuff like that, because it was I can't remember the company, but they did
Empire.
like From Beyond. Empire, yes, they did like From Beyond, the
Mm-hmm.
Reanimator, all those things. So it still lies in that kind of like library, I think. But I believe all that is part of like a Lovecraftian story
Mm-hmm.
that I think they have the rights to be able to do those characters without actually using the movie, like the Reanimator. The Reanimator is a title they can't use. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine it's probably like something with just using it as an HP Lovecraft kind of, story, not necessarily like a Reanimator story. That's probably how they get Herbert West and maybe just use the name instead. But I was just kind of
Yeah.
curious. I wondered if like Stuart Gordon even knew that they were making this or anything like that, or if they had any kind of input to it. It's kind of interesting because it sounds like the series that they're making is pretty solid from what you're saying. So it's
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
cool to be able to see
this
it.
one came out. This one came out this year. It was 2022. So I can't remember how long ago Stuart Gordon passed, but yeah, he would have never been involved with these because these were made after his passing. So
Mm. I have one more movie too, real quick. I wanted to touch on before we get started with Fright Fights. I wanted to mention Men because if anybody here that's listening has watched Men, you guys haven't seen it yet.
no.
I have not.
All right, so I just wanted to briefly mention because I just really, really don't know what the fuck happened on screen when I was watching it. But this is A24. It came out this year, and it started out like a very like nice kind of film about recovery and loss and grief and the grieving process. So essentially, this woman wants a divorce from her husband. Her husband, loves her very much, but is very manipulative and slightly abusive toward her. And it kind of like depicts that throughout the beginning, through a series of flashbacks. And what happens is he was like, if you ever leave me, I will kill myself. And she was like, well, you better just get started because I'm leaving. And she leaves him. As she's packing up, she looks outside and she sees him fall to his death. She blames herself for this. She has a hard time with this, so she decides to try to heal. And she goes to a like English cottage, like not it's not even a cottage, it's more like a mansion, but it's very, very like old school English. Has the baby grand piano, has like the beautiful topiaries on the outside. It's this like really nice home. And you guys know like how some horror movies, the location itself kind of becomes a character. They kind of felt like that. This house had a lot of, different rooms, a lot of different kind of like creepy aspects to it. You really didn't know what was going to happen. Um, and there's a lot to say about what's going to happen. I'm not going to touch on all of it, but I am going to say something that I caught from it was every person that watches this in the audience or however you watch it is going to get a different experience of kind of like how the film is. So the film I watch and the themes and the ideas that I get from it would be different from what anybody else would, because there's multifaceted concepts and ideas throughout. And the director, I was watching an interview with him and he actually said this was intentional, that he didn't have necessarily a very like hard kind of like plot point that he wanted to hit. And this is the guy who directed Ex Machina, Alex Garland. And Ex Machina was great. I love Ex Machina to death. But this film was very, very different from that. It was not sci-fi, it was not horror, it wasn't really necessarily any kind of genre that I can think of besides psychological. But essentially there's a weird naked man, there's a birthing scene, there is like some weird ass like stalking scenes. It kind of is like a social commentary as well. It's just so much to go on to. But the problem is that it lost its way. It was sloppy, it was executed poorly, and with those three things said, there was a lot of good to say about it as well. I mean, it was beautifully shot. The characters themselves acted their heart out. Like the main two people, I forgot who the actors were, but they were like English actors. The guy actually played like six different characters from six different backgrounds on set, and he was the only male actor pretty much in the film to play a role, and he had to do all these different roles. So it was really interesting, and they shot it right at the heart of the pandemic too. So that was very hard for them because it was very, obviously reclusive. You can't really go together and collaborate like normal. So that kind of added to this kind of weird filling aspect that the film kind of gives off. But I'm curious what you guys think about it. So anybody listening that's watched it, if you want to chat men, definitely like reach out because I am curious to see what you thought. I personally would probably give it right in the middle of 5 out of 10. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was bad. I think that there might be times I think it's better. Sometimes I think it's worse. It's really hard to say, but I think that's a pretty fair reading for it. And I really want you guys to watch it too, Chris and Mike, because I
Yeah.
think that I want to see what you guys have to think about this. Because the last 30 minutes, you won't even like, it's just bonkers. And it has so many different meanings behind it too. So I'm curious of what you guys get from that. So that is Men, Alex Garland. That's A24. Don't check it out. Check it out. I don't know. Okay. I'm done.
All right, everybody. It is almost time for the very first edition of the Fright Fights podcast, Battle of the 90s Slashers. What we're going to do here is we're going to spin a wheel that's going to either give us positive points or negative points toward our films for the outcome. So after we review each one of our choices, we are going to give a rating. And based off this spin, we are either going to add points or remove points from our ratings to see which film is the winner. So it's not only going to be just our points that gives the film its victory, it'll be fate of the wheel as well. So right now we're going to introduce our films and see what kind of point base we are going to get with it as well. So I guess I will go first. my choice for 90s slasher battle is the 1995 film directed by Jeff Burr, Night of the Scarecrow. Tyler, spin that wheel for me, please.
Woo woo! The fear will.
And I get 1 point. 1 point. So whatever my rating ends up being from all three of us put together, I will add one additional point to it. So that's good for me. All right.
All right.
Mike, introduce your film and spin that wheel.
My film was Pledge Night. It was a college frat hazing their new pledges during what they call Hell Week. So, wow, I don't even know really where to go from this. There was so much, but
go ahead and spin that wheel for us first.
Let's spin it. How do I spin it?
All right, here we go. Here we go.
There we go.
Oh my god!
Oh, you son of a bitch!
That's it. Literally.
What can I say?
The worst film.
10 points.
You're gonna get 10 points.
Sometimes, if you're not first, you're worst, man. I tell you.
That's it. I'm leaving the call. I'm done.
Honestly, such an underrated. I'm just playing. Yes, by far the worst film, but I'll take 10 points, guys.
Oh,
you lucky son of a bitch.
I'm mad.
I will. I swear, right, man. You know, my back hurts. I tell you what.
Knowing my luck, let's see what happens to mine. Oh, Jesus. So my film is a 1991 slasher film. It's called Body Parts, directed by Eric Red. And I'm going to spin the wheel. Hey! 7
points.
So Chris has earned 1 extra point. Mike has earned 10 extra points.
Pledge night.
And then I've earned 7 extra points. So
I think we all know who's going to win now.
Oh yeah, that's I cannot believe. Okay, all right, here we go. So Chris, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your film to start us off?
All right, guys. So Night of the Scarecrow, 1995, directed by Jeff Burr. It's about a group of kids who accidentally set free the spirit of a warlock that was imprisoned or entombed on the farm property years and years before. The warlock ghost possesses a scarecrow. The scarecrow goes on a killing spree, killing off all the descendants of the family that kind of entombed him in the prior years, and is up to a group of people to kind of stop the scarecrow from taking over and getting back the demonic book that will set him free for eternity to start killing for as long as he wants to. One thing that I notice about this movie, which you guys probably notice this too, is the scarecrow himself. When he's talking, he always does this thing, like he's going around killing people, but he's asking them for his book back. So he's going, "Give me back my book." And it reminded me of Creepshow with the segment where it's the "Give me my cake, my birthday cake." You know what I'm talking about? Where like the zombie is like, "Give me my cake." That's what it reminded me of a lot. So one thing I remember, I watched this movie as a kid, and I really, really loved it. Haven't seen it in a long time, but the one thing about it is the gore effects is actually really, really well done. And I was thinking I was going to go into this thinking that the movie was really, really cheesy and really bad based off my memory and stuff. But no, it was actually really good effects. It was well done. They were really gory, very realistic, actually. There's a couple scenes where, or there's one scene where this guy gets, I'm not sure like what kind of farming equipment is, but it's one of those things that like pledges out the corn stalks and stuff like that. It's like a big wheel that like whenever you turn it on, it spins really, really fast back and forth. And he gets pushed into that by the scarecrow while it's turned on, and it shows it like going into his back and like crumbling his body up and stuff, and it was really well done. And I was very surprised by how well the gore effects were. Now, I know that we're doing a review and everything on this, but I do want to tell a story about this, because one reason why I love this movie so much is kind of like my history involvement with the director of Jeff Burr. So back in the day, we're talking like mid 2000s. I set out that I wanted to be in the film industry. I wanted to make movies, and I wanted to make horror films. And because I really liked Night of the Scarecrow, I reached out to the director Jeff Burr, and I started talking to him about Night of the Scarecrow, and like emailing him back and forth. And he actually said that, this is a movie that not anybody ever talks to him about, and nobody's ever really said anything about it. And he was very glad to hear somebody mention a positive note on this film. And so we exchanged emails back and forth quite a bit. And he actually sent me a poster in the mail of Night of the Scarecrow, signed by him, with a little message on it that talks about making the movies and stuff, and really, really cool. And this leads into another involvement with Jeff Burr that I had years later. So years later, I met up with Jeff Burr at a movie convention, and he remembered who I was when I met him. He remembered talking to me through emails. And so he actually asked me to sit at his table with him for a little bit and talk with him about filmmaking, and talk with him about my love for Night of the Scarecrow and everything. And he signed a script of Night of the Scarecrow, and he gave the script to me for free. But the story, this is where it gets interesting, is as I'm sitting here talking to Jeff Burr, a couple people walk up and they're wanting to get Jeff's autograph. So being nice and everything, I got up and I kind of stood on the side of the table, and I was waiting for them to get done talking to him so that I could sit back down and talk with him again. And lo and behold, to me, I don't know if you know who the guy who plays Maniac Cop is, but his name is Robert Zadar. And he was sitting at the table directly next to Jeff Burr. And I'm sitting there staring at Jeff, waiting for him to get done. And Robert Zadar just out of nowhere starts screaming at me, like, why are you in my conversations? Why are you listening in on my private phone calls? And I'm like, what is going on? And I don't mean like just talking loudly. Like, he is yelling at me in the middle of this convention. And Jeff Burr is looking at me like, what is he doing? Like, what's going on? And to the point to where everybody is staring at me at this convention like I did something wrong. And he's basically blaming me, saying that I am trying to gather information from his private phone call that he's having with his manager about upcoming movie projects. And I had enough of it. So I turned around and I started yelling back at him. I said, I am trying to have a conversation with Jeff Burr. I'm not here to see you. I said, as a matter of fact, it doesn't look like there's anybody here to see you. I told him that even if there was anything that he was talking to on his film projects with his manager, it's nothing that I would ever be interested in hearing. And he didn't like that. So he started yelling, saying that I needed to go away and I needed to get out of the convention because all I'm doing is gathering private information that I shouldn't be hearing. And so I had to get the manager involved in the convention, and he had to go over and talk to him. And like, it was this really, really weird story that just, it's in my head now because of that. Like, I don't like Robert Zadar, even though he's passed away, but I still don't like him. But I did get to meet and sit down and talk with Jeff for a little bit more about the making of Night of the Scarecrow afterwards. But I just wanted to throw that in there because this movie always makes me remember the Robert Zadar story. So, but back to the movie is, it's a really fun movie. It's very lighthearted when it comes to the effects and stuff, and it tries to be one of these cheesy slasher movies with like one-liners, like the Freddy Krueger type thing. Like every time the Scarecrow goes to kill somebody, he always has to say something to him first. So not only is he looking for his book, but he also has a one-liner just before he kills him. The one in particular that I'm thinking of is he steps out one time and this guy turns around and sees him. And instead of just like saying something funny, he just says some random word. He goes, "Well, hello there." and then kills him. And it was like, what? What? Why did he even say that? There was no reason.
He says, "Well,
to-
hey there."
Yeah, he's like, well, hey
Get
there.
it? Hey there.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh my
Hey,
god.
yeah.
That's what it means. That was one part of the
Shut
movie. I
up.
literally said I could not stop laughing. I was like, "Wait, is this intentional or was this not intentional?" Because he was like popped out of the hay right before he kills him. He's like, "Well, hey
Hey
there,"
there.
and I was
That's
like,
That
"Oh
went
my
way
god!"
over my head.
That's pretty
That-
clever right there.
You know what? I thought it was stupid, but now I like it.
I do too. That's
My rating
that's
went up
catchy.
by at least 10 points.
At least 20 points, right? In fact, we're gonna
Um,
stop right now. Chris has won. That is it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That hands down over.
I have a question,
So
Chris.
yeah,
Do you think Robert Zadar likes Night of the Scarecrow?
I think Robert Zadar can crawl out of his crypt and fuck himself.
I'm dead. Oh,
No,
get
he is.
he's dead. That is great.
But yeah, I've always loved the movie. I think it's one of the better '90s slasher films. It's made with heart. It's made with somebody who really wants to make movies and show off their writing and directing skills and everything. And I think Jeff Burr has always had that momentum going into every single movie that he's made. And I think this movie highlighted his love for making films. With all that said, I know I have a little bit more of love for it than you guys do because of my history with it. But I give this movie, I give it a 7 out of 10.
All right, so for me with Night of the Scarecrow, whenever I was watching it, I feel like it's the perfect film to really sit down and watch with an audience. Um, Whenever I was watching it by myself, like we were just talking about, a lot of like the comedy moments that was put into it, which I feel like was very, very like carefully placed. It landed, yes, but I feel like it would just be so much fun to watch with an audience. Have you ever had the chance to watch with an audience, Chris? Or was it just
No, I
straight
have
to
not.
was it? I think it was straight to video, was it?
It was, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was a straight to video 90s film, but I wasn't 100% sure if they ever had a screening of it or not, because I think it would really play well in front of an audience. Um, there was one scene in particular, and I just want to say it because I don't know exactly what they were trying to do, because obviously they went to this big long monologue about how the crops were failing and how they basically this warlock was pretty much granting them a fertile kind of like harvest, and he would be able to have like free reign of this town. But essentially, there's this one scene where, well, there's more than one scene really, but he has his like finger. I was hoping you could shed some on this too, Chris, because he has his like finger and he's like the devil seed or something like that. And then he like
Oh,
proceeds.
that's one of the best scenes in the movie. Like effects wise, like it's a special effects artist showcase really because he takes his seed um, through his finger and he implants it down the woman's throat in the van, and it causes like the corn stalks to like wrap around her and like come from inside her out. There's really no point to it.
It's
Like
the
it
devil,
doesn't
it's the
go
seed.
anywhere.
I feel like
But
he's like molesting her.
yeah, because he's moaning the entire time while
Yeah,
he's
he's
doing
like,
it. But there's really no reason for it because nothing happens. It's not like another scarecrow comes out of her and like starts to kill people as well, or it's not like he's hiding in there waiting for the person to come to the van and then he pops out of her and kills him that way. It's just a way for them to do a special effect and create a really cool scene, and I'm okay with that.
yeah, I think honestly, okay, here's the thing. I think Night of the Scarecrow definitely was one of those films that threw comedy in, and I think the Devil Seed scene was definitely one of the comedic moments. Would you agree, Mike? What do you think of the Devil
Oh,
Seed?
I was confused. I was just waiting for it to pop out of her at some point, but
Yes.
it just she ate it and that was it. It's just a kernel seed. It never saw the film again. It just it was really weird. But I highly enjoyed this film. Shockingly, I didn't go in with high expectations, which I didn't with any of these, to be honest with you. But no, if you could somehow combine Maniac, Children of the Corn, and Pumpkinhead, you would get Night of the Scarecrow. It's just,
Yeah, that's a really good description of it, actually.
it really is. I mean, like you have the Children of the Corn, you have the Corn, the rural area, Maniac, and then Pumpkinhead as the Scarecrow. I was really sitting there, and when I was watching it, I love the music in it. I mean, it is your typical 90s, I mean, horror music. The sound effects were, I mean, everything I will say about this movie will 2 thumbs up. It's your typical the effects are done well without like computers. I thought, the makeup, the blood, the kill scenes were way above average for that time frame. The only thing that I had a big problem with but Lax and I were talking about this. You know how the Scarecrow will just magically pop up anywhere, and he can get to any point at any time, just showing up. Well, they were leaving the house and they're running to the cop car. Well, you saw the Scarecrow running from the house, and he hurdles a bush, doesn't run through it, and he almost like stabs the cop car right before it pulls off. Just small things like that I pick up on detail because I watch movies pretty closely. I thought that was kind of comical. Like, why didn't he just magically appear in front of the cop car to preventing them from driving off? But I love the ending. The ending was awesome. It's the kills were very innovative. To be honest, the plot is hardly original, but it turns out to be just good enough that it works. The film is just, I really think it's just a lost treasure for horror scavengers, hunters like us. You guys have obviously seen this before, but I have not. And I really think, by watching this, it's kind of like what you said, Tyler. It would be a really good movie to watch with a group of friends. It's comical. I put it in the category as comic horror, which I am a huge fan of. And the acting was not done super terrible. It wasn't like, great, but overall super impressive. I loved it. And I'm going to go out even a little bit more of a stretch. I gave it a 7.4. I loved it.
Oh, wow.
I really, really liked it.
That.
Well, I wasn't either.
Didn't they market it? Didn't like Jeff Burr or somebody in marketing dub that the Scarecrow was scarier than like Pumpkinhead? They had something with the marketing. It was like scarier than Pumpkinhead, more gruesome than something. I don't know. It was basically like talking like how it was scarier than Freddy. Pumpkinhead.
I got
everybody.
that out of it. Yeah, Pumpkinhead, Children of the Corn mix. Like it was done well. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I'm wondering, when did do you guys remember when the actual film Scarecrows came out? I'm wondering if this was like one of those like films that came out as
that was like
kind of,
88, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
It was right before 90.
It just popped in my head that maybe like that's what was kind of going on at that point, was they wanted to really make because it's obvious it's a warlock. It's not a 88. Scarecrow. But I think it's really interesting because we see that the warlock was placed inside of a Scarecrow. So obviously there was a choice being made. Like, where should we put the spirit of the warlock? And they had a lot of options. They could have obviously possessed somebody in the town. They could have made an absolute serial killer out of them. They could have done it in a doll. They chose Scarecrow, which I thought was really interesting too. And there's something about scarecrows in movies that I will say kind of is interesting. I don't know. There's something that's like more nostalgic whenever you watch a film and it has like a scarecrow in it versus just like the evil doll, the serial killer. It kind of gives something memorable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the entire time you're watching it, you kept thinking to yourself, where's the Wizard of Oz reference? Where's the Wizard of Oz reference? And then they finally do it. If you remember, she was like, here's your fire, Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Whenever she's when she lights him on fire. But the one thing I remember too is the Scarecrow's bones is kept inside of like this little tiny box. And at one point she drops the box and the Scarecrow like freaks out, like it's hurting it. Like anytime the box is being hit. So she starts hitting it against the ground and it gets hurt every single time. And then later on, when she's trying to run, the Scarecrow hits her and she falls, and the box hits the ground, but the Scarecrow doesn't react to it. It's like a little bit of continuity error there. It kind of bothered me, but I still really liked it. What was your rating on that, Tyler?
All right, so for Night Scarecrow, I'd probably say 5 out of 10. Solid right in the middle.
Hey,
all
now.
Right. So I got a 7.4. Mike's making up like random numbers here.
I like the points. I like the points. It can make or break something.
And you got a 5, so it is 19.4 plus 1 for my wheel spin. So I have 20.4. That's my score right now. So far, I'm winning.
All right, 20.4. I'm going to make a note of that, and I will hold you to it.
20.4.
20.4 going to Chris. All right, Mike, what you got for us this week?
So, guys, I watched a horror slash. Honestly, I don't even know what I watched. No, it's called Pledge Night. I think it came out in 1988. Which I don't know how we picked that up because they were supposed to watch 90s. But anyways, we'll roll with it. It's a college.
Here's the thing, Mike, is I looked into this too, because when you chose this movie, I kept seeing it pop up in like listings of 90s slasher films.
Yeah.
So the film was made in 1988, but it was never actually released until 1990.
Okay.
So
Makes sense now,
that's the official release date. So it's an 88 film, but it was released in 90. So I was okay with including it in the 90s slasher film. So
little fun fact there. I did not know.
Yeah, that's actually something I was going to even mention too on my review. Was it's like how I would describe the entire thing is like it's the most 80s 90s film you'll ever watch. It's like literally it feels like an 80s film.
Yeah.
And whatever I saw it was 1990 and I was like, wait, something about this feels very 80s. And then you like research it a little bit and you're like, wait, that's because it was made in the 80s. Anyway, go on. I just thought that was crazy.
I'm very curious to see how Mike's going to describe this movie.
Okay. Well, so it's a college town. It's a college frat in the middle of their hazing week. The hazing week is pretty sure it was called Hell Week. But they incur a long deceased ex pledge that was, I think it was 20 years ago when he pledged. But anyways, it was a pledge gone wrong, basically a prank. That they shoved this individual into a bathtub that was supposed to be filled with vinegar, I think like cornflakes and coffee, just a mix of crap that he had to like basically lay in. But somebody replaced the vinegar with acid, threw the individual into the tub, ate his skin away, and the individual died. But bringing back into current time, during the Hell Week of the new pledges, somehow the demon gets summoned. The individual, I forgot his name, the demon. Hold on, I'll find it. I think it was Bill.
The guy from Anthrax?
Yes. Yeah, really, right? But what I got out of this, the individual comes back and starts killing people, a demon. But before that, the first half of this movie, I did not mind because there was a pledge that was psychotic or there was something wrong with him that you could hear him from like the top shelf of the frat house screaming and everybody was like, what the hell's going on with this guy? And then this individual starts to kill people. But I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning of the hazing. I don't know what I watched when the hazing, these individuals, it was almost like a gay porn. I mean, to be honest with you, the pledging was seriously a part of the movie that I had to really fast forward because it was awkward. They had individuals pick cherries up with their assholes. So I can't believe I'm saying
that's my favorite scene.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm really saying this, but yeah, it was. It was almost like a kind of a mini porn. There was a lot of nudity in it. So if viewers, don't let your younger children or teens watch this.
That's the thing about this is there, even though that there was a lot of like really gay undertones to the film, there was a lot of female
of
nudity as
straight
well.
of straight of straight
Was
yeah straight nudity. Like
it was an odd mix.
it was. And honestly, my favorite kill though was the hand out of the toilet that murdered the dude sitting on the toilet to try to get the cherry out of his ass. And but the thoughts at first, it plays like a gonzo slasher horror, kind of, it's edgy, it's comical, it is kind of a gay slash porn, mixed with hazing. But it's safe to say, like, after watching this, like the cheesy stuff, that I call it's an ass happy horror film. So but to be fair, I think it had potential. It definitely had potential. It was low budget, you could tell. I think there was only two filming areas, in one frat house, and then they ran across the street. I think it might have been the same house, to be honest with you, and acted like they were running over to another pledge house or another frat house to call the police. It was very low budget. It was shot very badly. The acting was horrible. The plot itself was awful. The demon, the pledge that came back to life, was kind of like a knockoff Wish Freddy Krueger. I felt, so overall, I was really happy to see this end. The ending was just, the movie seemed long, even though the movie was only, I think, an hour and like 25 minutes. It seemed very long. The music, like, I'm a huge sucker for 80s and 90s horror music. The music was awful. So I was trying to find the best out of any of this. First half of the movie was a lot better than the second half of the movie. The potential was there.
You just like the cherry scene with the assholes.
I did. And
well, I have to say, I want to say that I feel like the thing is like we talk about how it's kind of like horribly acted and like it's kind of like a little kind of
were they aiming for that? Yeah.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I think what happened was we had a group of people who wanted to make that kind of like 80s kind of like comedy, almost like in the theme of like an Animal House, or I don't know, something like that. And they wanted to like have like something funny, because what it was like the first half of the movie was like hilarious, right? It was supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
It was, you could see how they were going for like, it's a kind of a college kind of fraternity. And then the second half goes into much, much deeper, darker horror tones. So there's like a tonal shift here from like one movie that we're watching, and it goes completely in the other direction. So to me, I'm like, well, it is uncomfortable to watch, but I feel like at the same time, what translated to us as kind of like very like gay undertones, I feel like they were just trying to make something that was like funny, but it didn't work. Like they just completely failed at that.
No, I agree with that. So there was a scene that lasted 5 to 10 minutes. There, individuals were just running in and out of hallways, or through hallways, in and out of doors, and like nothing happened. There weren't like really any kills. So there was a lot of pointless things that happened.
Those scenes are kind of like in those Scooby-Doo episodes where the villains are chasing the Scooby gang around, and they're running from room to room, door to door. They pop up from different places, and then it doesn't, like, they never get caught. That's kind of like what happens in this movie.
Yeah, pretty much. But after everything's said and done, like, obviously it was a very bad movie. It didn't even hit the comedy side to me. It just hit more of a raunchy, low budget, effortless porno, I guess.
I really like the last 15 minutes, though. I will defend it with, I think that the first like 70 minutes sucked, And the last 15 minutes to me really, I don't know, this thing about it kicked in. And I just really kind of dug that final shot, like the final like shot with the whole entire, I don't, what was it basically? They were in the front and he was it stabs? He stabbed something? I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about. Help me out because
Yeah, no, I know
that
what you're
scene's
talking. Yeah,
beautifully done, I thought. I don't know why I completely like just lost it in my head, but
Yeah, it's like two movies together. You get the first half, like you were discussing, a very detailed description of like Animal
yeah,
House type movie.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a goofy 80s comedy, like a goofball
yeah,
one.
and then from that point on, whenever the demon or whatever comes out of the killer's body, it kind of tone changes. And it just turns into a cheesy slasher film. And at that point, that's where I liked the film. I thought that's where
Hmm.
it picked up, became really interesting and real fun. If they would have taken, because you get the one guy who's like the fraternity guy who's going around and killing a couple people before the ghost comes out of him. If you take that part out and just have the demon guy come out at the beginning and take a few of those kills and stretch them across the beginning of those films, like it was every couple minutes, I think you would have had a much better slasher film than what they had.
yeah, I can agree to that. I mean,
The titles kick ass. I mean, it just sounds great, and the poster's not bad
yeah,
either.
no, like I said, it had some potential of being an above average. I mean, comedy horror, I guess maybe a slasher, but it failed on my part. It lost my attention and my interest, but my rating would probably be like maybe a 3.1, 3.2. So I'm gonna give it a 3.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
For me, I think that it is a slasher film having an identity crisis. I would give it a 4 out of 10.
So, because of the halfway tone switch with the straight up cheesy slasher, I enjoyed this a lot more than what I thought I would. I remember liking it because I seen it a long time ago, but I liked it a lot more. Like the second half of it, I liked a lot more than what I thought I would. I gave this a 5 out of 10.
Hey, I mean,
Hey,
I
there
think
we go.
that's honestly fair too. But the thing is that honestly, it's not a horrible film. It's just the thing is it's not a good enough slasher to be considered a good slasher. It's not a good enough comedy to be considered a good comedy. But the fact that they was able to take both subgenres, put them together, and somehow make them work, and then they also put some like they put Anthrax in there, so that was appealing to that. And overall, it's just like while it falls flat, there's still a lot to say about what they did with it. And it does have that 1980s kind of vibe. So I could see how it does go up higher. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but it reminds me of something I've seen in the video store. I feel like I've seen this film every single time I used to go to my local video store as a kid. It was always there. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, it was always
Yeah,
there, but I never rented it for
never
some
never
reason.
picked it up. Yeah,
But just like that, the artwork itself was enough to like kind of like draw me in because it was really a staple in kind of like the video store artwork because you always browse the halls looking at all the types of films they have and you pretty much just gamble based off of the artwork. So for me, I think Pledge Night was one of those staples that you would look at and just gamble. My parents, of course, would never in hell let me rent it, but it was still there and it still kind of felt homey to me. And I think that there is a soft spot for that. So yeah, I mean, I could see how some people would think this is a great film.
So that gives you a rating of 12, Mike, but you gained 10 points from the wheel.
hey,
So that is 22.
22. Are you
That puts
serious?
you in first place, Mike.
suck
Pledge
my
Night is
cherry.
winning.
Oh Jesus! No,
Oh my
no matter
god.
what, guys, we have all got to get together. We've got to give this one a higher score because we cannot let Pledge Night win.
Well, Tyler, you got another thing coming. I'm just playing. I'm playing.
No, honestly, people will listen to this and they're like, yeah, the one podcast that said Pledging is the best 90s slasher. Remember that? What was it?
They won't
Yeah,
forget us. They won't forget us.
absolutely.
All right, Tyler.
All right. So my film is a 1991 film by Eric Red, called Body Parts. And a lot of people really know this film from the star Jeff Fahey. A lot of Jeff Fahey films. He's been in literally 150 films now, it feels like. And a lot of people really like him. I think he does a killer performance in this. It's essentially about a doctor that he teaches college, he works with prisoners. He's on his way to speak to one of the prisoners after literally having this intense conversation, and is on his way down the road. He sees an axle start shaking from a car. Next thing you know, the axle falls off, hits him. Boom, from the back end he was struck by a semi truck. So essentially, they didn't think he made it. His wife was there at the hospital, really upset. Turns out they have a doctor there that comes out. I forgot the doctor's name. Let me find it here because I actually have notes of the names because I always forget people's name. Dr. Webb. So Dr. Webb comes out and is actually talking about how they stabilized her husband's condition and they were able to save everything but his arm. Um, Obviously, she was really upset by this, and the doctor said, "Well, there is actually an experimental thing that I can do, a procedure, to where I can get him a donor arm and sew it on limb by limb, like little tiny fragment by fragment, and give him full mobility of his hand." She was like, well, I mean, how was it going to work? Kind of had questions. And she was like, there is no time, sign the release. So she signs the release. And we are followed up by this crazy ass, like gruesome scene, which I was like shocked they were actually able to play in theaters. It was like super, super gory. And we see this arm be detached from this random person. Um, Jeff Fahey's character is looking over, literally in absolute just shock. And then he goes out, wakes up, and he's got his arm. Goes to physical therapy, goes home. Everything is normal. It's going well. Well, fast forward, he starts showing signs of like random aggression. So like he's like shaving one day and his kid's there and he cuts himself and the kid's like showing like basically like, "Oh, are you okay, dad?" And he's like, "Get away from me!" He's like freaking out. So they're like, "What's going on?" Well, fast forward, turns out that the arm that was given to him was the arm of a serial killer. What did you guys think of this film?
So that scene where it's like a montage of him going through rehabilitation, um, for some reason it felt like that arm healed really, really quickly.
It
Like it
Yeah.
didn't it didn't feel like they cut it. It wasn't like they were like, oh, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 1 year later. It felt like it was just instantly there and it was already better no matter, like, there was no healing process. It was just the arm was there, he could use it right after he was like out of surgery. It just really felt off, like didn't feel right. Um, but the movie itself, I had never seen it. This was a first time view for me, but I had
Same.
always knew what the movie was. I'd seen the trailer for it long ago, and was always interested in seeing it, but just never did take the time to watch it. The opening scene with the car crash was kind of shocking. I didn't expect it to be that good of a scene. Very realistic, very very scary actually, because that could actually happen in real life. But it's a very slow paced movie. I will say there's a character in here. I don't remember the character's name, but it's played by Brad Dourif.
Mhm.
And up until that point, when Brad Dourif comes in, I was really bored with the movie. I kind of lost interest. There was nothing really holding the movie together until Brad Dourif character showed up. And that's where things started getting interesting again.
Well, to me, the director Eric Red, I had heard that name before, And looking back, I was like, he wrote rather The Hitcher, and he also wrote Near Dark. Two like really solid films from, the 80s. And this was like his first like really, really big breakout. I think he actually wrote and directed it. So I thought that was really interesting too, because I love The Hitcher, and I felt like The Hitcher's and Near Dark's pacing was really good. Like the pacing of the films felt very natural, and this film's like 88 minutes long, and to me it was very lean and very quick. But I agree with you, Chris, that the pacing was awkward. It was like the thing is like obviously they made a very quick paced movie, almost like Reanimator style. They went right into it. They laid it out and just that's it. But for some reason, something about it was edited. I don't know if it was with editing or something, but the editing was kind of like weird with it. It kind of just like was stale at times. But I mean, I'm trying to say that in the most like uplifting way. While it was kind of like awkwardly paced, I did like the things that was going on in the film. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was pretty much the biggest takeaway from the editing of it, was the fact that it was very 50-50 with the edit. Kind of awkward,
And
basically.
Mike, I think this was a first time view for you as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Honest to God, I never even heard of this movie, so I was really excited to watch this. Kind of piggybacking off of what Chris said, it did start off slow, but I mean, after the car wreck was very graphical. Very yeah, it was very graphical as the car wreck. And it just seemed really fast paced. I get it. I guess they only had so long to make this, to condense this movie down. But the repairing of the arm, it was done very fast. So he had all full mobility with this arm. And then I just want to say, if I could get my legs cut off and then put sewn on to new ones, I want to dunk like that new guy, because I can't dunk a basketball. So no, I just thought everything was slow up to about the midway point until he met the other individuals with the extra body parts that was taken from this serial killer.
Mhm.
Then it got really good. The movie really picked up pace. Um, it it was very entertaining. It I liked the way. I like the main actor. I thought he played a very good part. I kept looking for Chucky, like the doll, to pop up somewhere, but you know, um,
Yeah, Brad Dourif, when he starts
Brad,
talking, the only thing you can think
when
of
it
is
when
just like,
whenever he laughs at like the bar when they were all drinking, I just was like looking for Chucky to be on the bar somewhere, just in the background or something. But I mean, the movie was done very well. I was very shocked. First half really slow. Second half was done really well. Hospital scene where at the end, uh, super graphical, blowing people's heads off, and how he bust open the glass and he's just shooting the hanging body
Mhm.
parts. It, I, it was cool. I liked it a lot.
man,
I
that
gave this
car
movie.
chase scene, that the scene where
Or he
they're
handcuffed his
he's
hands.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
that was
done well.
intense. Like I really thought, like it really felt like they really did that effect where they actually had their hands cuffed together while they were driving those cars. I kept like as I was watching the movie, I was like, turn, turn, turn now.
Yeah. I'll tell you another scene though was when what's his name got thrown out the window, when he got his arm just ripped off his body. Man,
yeah,
Yes.
super
yeah. That's where you
intense.
really hear Chucky's voice come out, is when he's falling out the
Yeah,
window.
yeah, yeah. Super intense.
Love
But
it.
I really enjoyed the movie. I gave this movie a 7. I really enjoyed it.
Well, something really
Yeah,
interesting too
That's a
was,
fair rating. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'll go ahead and say it. That's what I gave the film as well, was a 7 out of 10. To me, it was like one of those films that was directed by Stuart Gordon, but also wasn't actually directed by Stuart Gordon. It felt very much like a mix of his work with David Cronenberg with the body horror aspect. So here we have a film that really kind of like is trademarked and piggybacked off of these major works from David Cronenberg of the 80s, the Stuart Gordon films of the 90s. So you can really see a lot of that put into there. And apparently there was a unrated cut. So if you guys think how gory that the film actually came out to be, essentially there's an even more gory version that they've cut for that. They've shot other stuff, and you can
I'd
only
like to see
find
that.
it. Yeah, I think it's only on VHS or something. They cut it for the VHS and they took it out afterwards. I'm surprised that we don't have that version available to us today.
Well,
The
actually, the version that I watched is a VHS copy.
No way.
The
So
one that me and Mike, yeah. So
No.
maybe the one that we watched was that version. I'm not sure.
You guys
'Cause
could
I-
have seen it because the uncut version is only available in older formats. Today's version is not. They've cut out some additional stuff ever since.
Yeah,
I
me
think
and Mike
that-
might have watched because ours was very violent. Like there
Very.
was a lot of gore in it.
Yeah, apparently, I was listening to an interview with Eric Red, and it was so violent and so gory at the time that Paramount, whenever they was advertising the film, they had found the body parts in Jeffrey Dahmer's like house, and they decided to pull all the advertising and all the ads for body parts off because of that and how gory it was. So
Wow.
that's probably why it was toned down later on, was because of the trial and stuff. So that's really interesting. I thought it was. I mean, I think it's a blast. I think it's a very, very, very well told story. That is a bit awkward at times, but it does well.
Yeah.
So just because of the slow pace it had at the beginning of it, the only thing that was a little unbelievable in my mind was we're led to believe that the main villain at the end was the serial killer's head. They literally
Yeah.
decapitated this person and put it on a different body, and then he's going around and gathering up all of the other body parts that they kind of reattach to other people. I just thought that was very like, I don't know, not believable.
Wait, yeah, well,
but-
wait a minute. I'm not going to interrupt. It was a part where he's running and he has the bottom half and his arm. It was after the car wreck, and he was running.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
good.
the arms and the legs are like flopping over. He's like dropping the
Yeah.
pieces on the ground.
Yeah. Oh, good.
It's those moments that kind of make it fun, though, right?
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was a good
Yeah,
movie.
it was fun. But yeah, it was just very unbelievable of that particular moment. But altogether, it was very interesting, really gory. I was surprised by all the gore that was in it. Like Mike was saying, the headshots at the end of it, super gory. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Hey.
Nice.
we
So
have a
that's 20. That's a-
20
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got a 20, and then how many? You got 7, right?
7. So I got 27 points, and that
27.
means
There you
I
go.
have just won Fright Fights. Hey, that's right.
hey, I just want to
bitches.
say Pledge Night came in second there, Lex.
Hey, you know what?
the
Oh,
best
man.
film
Is
on
better
the
than both
planet,
those
literally.
movies.
I'll never eat a cherry the same way again.
Exactly. Well, I do want to say, guys, please, 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 if you're listening to the podcast on iTunes, please make sure you leave us a rating. Give us some feedback on that. As you guys rate that, that will tell the algorithm that you're liking our stuff and will move us up to where we can continue growing our show. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you follow us as well. YouTube, comment, like, subscribe, interact with us. We're here to talk. We're here to chat. I had a great time doing this episode, so I'm looking forward to the next one, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Again.
Yeah.
What you get
Okay.
like negative.
All right, so I get to pick. Before we go, I get to pick the next one, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Next one. Okay. All right, so I am going. Let's go with a fun direction here. All right, guys, to be continued. We're gonna surprise you. We're gonna talk about it, and we will see you next time.
So without further ado, Not the Scarecrow is better than both those movies. See you guys.
Oh man.